What if I told you there was a military maneuver so brilliant that it reshaped our understanding of warfare? The September 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive was not merely another engagement in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, it was a strategic masterpiece. Over the explosive 6 days from September 6 to 11, this operation showcased how meticulous planning and clever deception could topple a force that seemed overwhelmingly dominant. It was a striking David versus Goliath scenario, and the implications are set to redefine military strategy for decades. To grasp the enormity of Ukraine's triumph, consider the situation in summer 2022. Russian troops had taken control of the strategically crucial city of Izium by early April, transforming it into a formidable operational base. With around 24 battalion tactical groups and approximately 18,000 troops stationed there, Izium became essential for Russian logistics, serving as a critical supply line running from Crimea across the Kerch Bridge towards Kharkiv. This captured city allowed Russia to bolster its northern front, paving the way for advances on pivotal Ukrainian cities like Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. But beneath this apparent strength lay the seeds of Russian miscalculation. Throughout July and August, both Ukrainian and Russian media hinted at a looming counteroffensive in the Kherson region, luring Russian forces into a trap. By August, when the number of Russian battalions stationed in Izium had plummeted by half as troops were diverted south, the stage was set. Ukrainian leadership smartly utilized misinformation to fortify their own positions while luring the enemy away, making Russian commanders believe they were in control. On August 29, the announcement of a counteroffensive in Kherson set the Russians scrambling. Unbeknownst to them, Ukrainian forces were not concentrated in that area, they were amassing strength for the true operation in Kharkiv. As Russian commanders fell prey to this diversion, Alexander Syrsky was meticulously crafting one of the most effective military operations in modern history. When the counteroffensive began on September 6, it was executed with surgical precision. Ukrainian troops surged into Russian-held territory, taking advantage of the element of surprise. Concentrated north of Balaklia, Ukrainian forces moved under the cover of artillery, achieving an incredible breakthrough. In the first hours, they advanced over 11 miles, reaching a major logistical corridor that would further expedite their assault. In a twist of fate, the rapid collapse of Russian defenses in Kharkiv showcased critical weaknesses in their military strategy. While Ukrainian soldiers pressed on, celebrating their hard-earned gains, Russian leadership remained blissfully unaware of the catastrophe unfolding on the ground. Back in Moscow, celebratory festivities marked the city's anniversary, blissfully disconnected from the battlefield's grim reality. By September 9, Ukrainian forces had reclaimed territory expanding nearly 31 miles into the heart of Russian-controlled regions. Towns like Balaklia and Shevchenkov fell with barely a fight, amplifying the psychological strain on Russian soldiers who watched their once mighty perimeter collapse. As for military equipment, the Ukrainian triumphs were staggering. In a single week, reports indicated 2,850 Russian troops had perished and 590 pieces of military equipment destroyed, numbers that rattled the very foundations of Russian military might. Tanks, helicopters, artillery, much of it would soon adorn Ukrainian ranks as trophies of conflict. The brilliance of the Kharkiv counteroffensive wasn't solely in these tactical wins, it represented a colossal shift in control and morale. In an age where command and communication are vital, the disruption caused by Ukrainian forces sent ripples through Russian chains of command, exposing not just tactical vulnerabilities but a complete failure in strategic thinking. By the 11th of September, Ukrainian troops had advanced more than 45 miles, capturing critical logistical hubs and placing immense pressure on Russia's eastern operations. With each strategic win, Ukraine not only reclaimed its territory but fundamentally altered the landscape of modern warfare. In the lead-up to the pivotal events of September 2022, Russian military leaders exhibited a catastrophic miscalculation. For months, both Ukrainian and Russian outlets touted a supposed Ukrainian counteroffensive aimed at Kherson, while Russian forces were in the midst of repositioning. By August, battalions stationed in Izium had dwindled to half, reflecting a strategic gamble that backfired. The Ukrainian command cleverly exploited media narratives to blur their true intentions, diverting attention south while silently amassing strength in Kharkiv. This tactical sleight of hand played seamlessly into Russia's long-standing strategy, built on slow, deliberate advances. Confident in their superiority, they underestimated Ukraine's capabilities and lacked contingency plans for unexpected offensives. By the end of August 2022, Ukraine made a decisive move. The Southern Command announced the long-anticipated counteroffensive in Kherson, causing Russian leaders to scramble, redirecting their best units south. Meanwhile, Ukrainian positions in Kharkiv were left vulnerable, defended by second-tier forces. As Russian commanders fell for this strategic deception, Alexander Syrsky, a military figure celebrated for his defense of Kiev, was assembling a plan that would reshape the battlefield. As the commander of the Ukrainian land forces in Kharkiv, Syrsky's foresight and understanding of Russian military weaknesses became critical. An audacious and well-crafted military operation was in the works, a transformative strike that would turn the tides. Imagine the tension in the air as the Ukrainian forces prepared for their assault. The sound of artillery fire echoed in the distance, a menacing reminder of the power about to be unleashed. What would happen when these two armies clashed? As the dawn of September 6 broke, Ukrainian forces would soon advance into enemy-held territory, igniting a fierce struggle that would leave the world reeling. Could such a smaller force overwhelm a supposedly superior opponent? The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the annals of military history. Would Russian tactics hold up against this unexpected onslaught, or crumble under the weight of its own overconfidence? In the pivotal month of September 2022, a remarkable shift occurred in the ongoing conflict, showcasing the brilliance of Ukrainian military strategy. Alexander Syrsky, previously credited with the defense of Kiev, was entrusted with leading Ukrainian ground forces in Kharkiv. But who could have predicted the audacity of the operation that lay ahead? Syrsky wasn't merely planning tactical maneuvers, he understood the inherent flaws in Russian military doctrine. During the spring, he envisioned launching an offensive that would encircle the Russian forces in Balaklia and Izium. By summer, he proposed a clever diversion to draw attention away from the planned counteroffensive in Kherson, while quietly mobilizing troops for a surprise assault in Kharkiv. This was no ordinary battle plan, it was a masterstroke that capitalized on psychological impact more than brute force. On the eve of the operation, meticulous preparations unfolded. Each brigade was outfitted with an impressive arsenal, including 8 M777 howitzers, establishing an overwhelming firepower advantage. This was the spark needed to ignite a rapid breakthrough. As dawn broke on September 6, the attack commenced. Ukrainian forces, strategically amassed northwest of Balaklia, surged into Russian-held territory, catching the invaders off guard. With the air thick with tension and the distant sounds of artillery echoing, the Ukrainian troops unleashed their assault, pushing forward across the rugged terrain. The fruits of their labor became evident almost immediately. The Ukrainian 25th Airborne Brigade charged forward, achieving an astounding initial advance of over 11 miles by day's end, culminating in the capture of the essential village of Walachiv Yar. This location served as a vital junction, amplifying Ukrainian momentum and securing vital routes for the onslaught. The sheer speed of the Ukrainian advance raised the stakes, forcing the Russian forces into frantic retreat. Were they prepared for the psychological unraveling that would soon follow? Unbeknownst to them, a perfect storm was brewing, a complete transformation of the battlefield dynamics that would leave a lasting imprint on military strategy for generations to come. As Ukrainian troops pressed deeper, the fabric of Russian command began to fray under the mounting pressure. Little did the world know that the unfolding of events would soon reveal greater vulnerabilities entrenched in the Russian military's approach, leading to an unprecedented collapse that no one could have ever anticipated. In the gripping narrative of the Kharkiv counteroffensive, Ukrainian forces surged into Russian-held territory with unexpected speed and precision. Having methodically launched artillery barrages throughout the early morning hours of September 6, 2022, the Ukrainian 25th Airborne Brigade initiated its advance shortly after dawn. In a remarkable display of tactical brilliance, they propelled themselves forward by at least 11 miles on that very first day, reaching the pivotal village of Walachiv Yar. This village, a crucial crossroads, became the launching point for Ukraine's rapid offensive maneuvers. The unraveling of Russian defenses was nothing short of breathtaking, revealing critical flaws in their military strategy. Reports indicated a shocking disparity between the chaos on the northeastern front and the celebratory atmosphere in Moscow, where locals were engrossed in festivities marking the city's 875th anniversary. The stark contrast between the jubilant celebrations and the disintegrating front lines highlighted the deep institutional issues plaguing the Russian military command. By September 9, Ukraine had penetrated nearly 31 miles into occupied territory, successfully reclaiming key towns like Balaklia and Shevchenkov, and setting its sights on Kupiansk. Despite being heavily fortified, these positions crumbled under pressure with astonishing ease. The psychological toll on Russian troops was immediate and severe. Analysts were quick to point out that it marked the first instance since World War II of entire Russian units being lost in a conflict at this scale. As Ukrainian soldiers advanced, tales emerged of Russian troops fleeing in panic, leaving behind not just munitions, but also an array of newly deployed military gear, many of which were seized and repurposed by Ukrainian forces. The impact on Russian military assets was staggering. Estimates from September 6 to 11 indicated a loss of 2,850 Russian soldiers and the destruction of up to 590 military units, including 86 tanks, 158 armored combat vehicles, and a significant number of artillery pieces. This catastrophe was not merely about equipment but signified a complete collapse of command and coordination within the Russian ranks. The battle strategy employed by Ukraine would resonate in military circles for decades, showcasing an extraordinary twist in the story of modern warfare. How did a seemingly outmatched force turn the tables so decisively? The answer lies in their cunning deception and unparalleled tactical execution, asserting a new paradigm on the battlefield. As the dust settled on the battlefield, the staggering blow to Russian forces became painfully clear. Between September 6 and 11, the Ukrainians claimed the lives of 2,850 Russian soldiers and obliterated nearly 590 pieces of military equipment, including 86 tanks and 158 armored vehicles. But what came next would shatter their momentum even further. What happens when a military's command crumbles under pressure? In the chaos of war, a breakdown in leadership can mean disaster. Ukrainian forces unleashed a storm of precision strikes, targeting crucial ammunition depots with HIMARS. As these munitions went up in flames, so too did Russia's strategic capacity. Without their resources and ineffective leadership, the Russian soldiers found themselves walking into a trap, powerless against the swift advancements of Ukrainian troops. The Institute for the Study of War emphasized the radical nature of Ukraine's counteroffensive. It wasn't merely a reclaiming of lost ground, it was a devastating blueprint for dismantling Russia's operational capabilities. A rapid advance disrupted long-standing lines of communication essential for resupplying Russian units in northern Luhansk. Could Russia recover from such a coordinated assault? By September 11, Ukrainian forces surged forth, recapturing key areas like Izium and gaining access to the Osko River. Reports indicated an astonishing penetrative depth of up to 45 miles into Russian-held territory, over 3,000 square kilometers reclaimed. The loss of Kupiansk, a vital railway hub, compounded Russia's troubles, crippling their logistical capabilities. Imagine a fortress with no gates. That's what northern Ukraine became as supply lines crumbled. Caught in this nightmare, the Russian military faced an enemy that was not just taking territory but strategically ensuring its hold on the eastern front. They found themselves cornered, a relentless pincer movement isolating units, preventing retreat, and escalating the chaos. Against this backdrop of turmoil, the real question emerges: could any amount of reinforcements save a broken military? The clock was ticking, the stakes higher than ever, and each battle cry echoed a chilling truth: the tide had turned, and the landscape of modern warfare was forever shifted. As the Ukrainian forces advanced rapidly, they forced Russian soldiers to move without essential equipment and supplies, rendering them vulnerable against the oncoming barrage. This swift operation employed clever pincer tactics, isolating Russian units and thwarting any chance of a coordinated retreat. The Russian Ministry of Defense released a statement declaring that their troops in the Balaklia and Izium regions would regroup in Donetsk. This was a thinly veiled admission of their humiliating retreat. Once the initial offensive crippled Russian logistics and liberated crucial strategic positions, the remainder of the counteroffensive unfolded with surprising ease. As Russia officially announced its withdrawal, its forces fled northeast towards the Osko River, a crucial line they perceived as vital to maintaining their operational foothold in the region. Meanwhile, reports emerged that Ukrainian troops had crossed the river as early as September 13, seizing strategic outposts that became launching pads for launching an invasion on Lyman. By mid-September, the situation for Russian forces in Lyman deteriorated drastically, with their command structure proving unable to address the escalating crisis. The once reliable supply lines for Lyman became a glaring weakness, as Ukrainian forces advanced on the city from two fronts, Donetsk and Kharkiv. The air was thick with tension, and the ground echoed with the sounds of conflict as rumors of Ukrainian successes spread like wildfire, shaking the morale of the Russian troops. This wasn't just a battle, it was an extraordinary display of strategy unraveling in real time. Would the beleaguered Russian forces find a way to regroup, or would they face complete disintegration in front of a relentless foe? With their backs against the wall, the Russian soldiers clung to a fleeting sense of hope. But as Ukrainian forces gained momentum, every minute counted, every inch conquered amplified their dread. The psychological toll became palpable, as fear of the unknown loomed over them. Would the end come as swiftly as their sudden retreat? As we delve deeper into this unfolding saga, the stakes couldn't be higher. Territory is at risk, but more importantly, prestige and power hang in the balance. Would the Russian military be able to rally, or was this the final act of a once formidable force? Stay tuned as we uncover the dramatic twists and unforeseen turns in this modern warfare chronicle, where strategic prowess could lead to a decisive turning point in the conflict's narrative. In the aftermath of a gripping military standoff, Ukrainian forces had meticulously gained control over surrounding territories, moving ever closer to the heart of Lyman. The once thriving supply lines that sustained Russian troops began to dissolve, revealing vulnerabilities. Suddenly, Ukraine could approach Lyman from both the Donetsk and Kharkiv directions, pinning the Russian forces in an increasingly precarious position. But what would happen next would shock the military world. By the end of September, Ukrainian forces had boldly crossed the Siversky Donets River, advancing on Lyman's southern and eastern flanks. With swift intelligence and superior tactical planning, they captured key territories to the northwest of the city, effectively severing the last remaining supply road for the occupying troops. Would the Russian command realize their impending doom before it was too late? On October 1, Ukrainian forces surged into Lyman, encircling an impressive 5,000 Russian soldiers, inflicting heavy losses. The battle for Lyman marked the climax of an astonishing campaign. Although it could be argued that Ukraine emerged victorious the moment Russia announced its withdrawal on September 11, the full significance of this counteroffensive was revealed in the following days. Analysts from the Center for Strategic and International Studies observed that this critical counteroffensive occurred between September 6 and 13, witnessing an unprecedented advance of 4.6 miles per day. How could a smaller, more agile force overthrow a behemoth that seemed invincible? This raises a provocative question about the very essence of military strength. The Kharkiv counteroffensive delivered a powerful lesson: numerical superiority crumbles in the face of flawed military doctrine. Although Russia entered the fray with vast advantages, troops, artillery, tanks, and aircraft, what they lacked was adaptability and robust strategy. Months of occupation and fortification could not mask the cold reality: they would face a catastrophic defeat in less than a week. This wasn't merely a tactical hiccup, it revealed systemic flaws in their operational approach that reshaped the battlefield dynamics for years to come. As the echoes of gunfire subsided, what remained was a glaring revelation: the art of war had evolved. The strategic highlights from this offensive are not just lessons in tactics, they are significant insights into the future of modern warfare. Would other nations take note, or would they ignore these warning signs? The ramifications of Ukraine's lightning success resonate well beyond the borders of their homeland, challenging decades of military complacencies worldwide. Summary of the previous part: despite holding numerous strategic advantages, like artillery, tanks, and aircraft, the Russian military suffered a catastrophic defeat in under a week. The issue extended beyond tactical errors to highlight systemic failures in their approach. Imagine two armies preparing for battle, one armed with overwhelming numbers, entrenched for months, the other agile, undeterred, and fighting for survival. In a staggering twist, the latter emerged victorious, turning the tides of warfare in mere days. How could this happen? This monumental shift on the battlefield was the result of masterful logistics and strategic execution, showcasing how planning can outmaneuver sheer force. While Western arms bolstered Ukraine's efforts significantly, it was a brilliant orchestration of logistics and adaptability that truly triumphed. Ukrainian forces displayed superior planning, real-time intelligence, flexible command structures, and a fierce will to survive. In stark contrast, Russian military doctrine, grounded in centralized control and overwhelming firepower, could not compete with Ukraine's dynamic tactics. On September 10, the British Ministry of Defense reported a shocking revelation: the Russian army had failed to adequately defend most territories recently reclaimed by Ukraine. This was not mere incompetence, it was a clear consequence of a military system ill-suited for the evolving landscape of modern warfare. Russian strategies, initially forged for colossal confrontations on home soil, proved utterly ineffective against an adaptive adversary leveraging technology for its own survival. At the heart of Ukraine's recent success lay a sophisticated manipulation of Russian decision-making through information warfare. Utilizing social media and mainstream news to mislead their enemy was not a revolutionary tactic, but in the 21st century, it became a potent weapon of choice. By masking their true military objectives, Ukraine diminished Russia's perceived threat in the crucial Kharkiv region, allowing them to seize the initiative with devastating effect. As Ukrainian forces surged forward, the enemy struggled to respond. What happens when a fortified invader faces a smaller yet ferocious opponent, driven by a fierce sense of purpose? In less than a week, the paradigm of warfare shifted dramatically, leaving Russian troops scrambling amidst the chaos. Would their return be possible, or had the balance of power irrevocably changed? The battlefield had turned into a theater of the unexpected, leaving many to question the very nature of modern military strategy. As waves of Ukrainian soldiers advanced, bolstered by meticulous planning, the repercussions on the Russian military became glaringly apparent. Their battle was not just physical but deeply psychological. Would they recover from this devastating loss or lose their grip on not just the territory, but the very will to fight? The tide of war had turned, but the aftermath would resonate for years to come. The challenges ahead for Russia seemed insurmountable, their fundamentals shaken as the winds of change swept across the battlefield. In the world of military strategy, if you're trying to understand the September 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive and finding yourself puzzled, you're overlooking a monumental maneuver that redefined modern warfare. This confrontation was not simply another skirmish in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, it was a stunning exhibition of strategy, clever deception, and tactical execution outshining the enormous manpower advantage of the opposing side. Between September 6 and 11, 2022, events unfolded that should be a case study for military academies for the next 100 years. Ukraine didn't just achieve a crucial victory, it illustrated how a smaller, quicker force could methodically unravel a seemingly superior enemy using pure strategic brilliance. Picture it as a contemporary David versus Goliath saga. As this daring crusade began, the Russian military was cloaked in overconfidence. They had occupied Izium, a city of great tactical significance, since early April 2022, establishing it as a fortified operating base for about 18,000 troops and 24 battalion tactical groups. With rail lines connecting from Crimea across the Kerch Bridge into northern Ukraine, the Russians believed they had a secure supply line that would carry them forward to seize critical Ukrainian cities. Yet, the foundations of their strategy were marred by miscalculations. In the summer of 2022, as rumors of a Ukrainian counteroffensive in the Kherson region flourished in media reports, Russian forces began to withdraw from Izium, leaving behind a precariously vulnerable front. Their command was ensnared in a web of misinformation. Bolstered by Ukraine's deft use of psychological tactics. As Russian generals frantically redeployed their most elite units southward, a quietly orchestrated plan was taking shape in Kharkiv. Enter Alexander Syrsky. Appointed to oversee Ukrainian land forces in Kharkiv, Syrsky understood the fatal flaws entrenched in Russian military doctrine. While Russian forces took their cues from a rigid command structure, Syrsky imagined a lightning-fast offensive that wouldn't rely on heavy urban combat. He recognized that swift movements and psychological warfare were more vital than head-on confrontations. When the clock struck dawn on September 6, 2022, Ukrainian forces launched a breathtaking offensive that caught their adversaries utterly unprepared. Soldiers, tanks, and armored vehicles surged into the heart of occupied territory, advancing swiftly and decisively. The crumbling Russian lines were imprinted by the chaos of retreat. By the day's end, Ukrainian troops had surged over 11 miles, reaching a critical junction. Can you hear the rumbling tanks or the distant thuds of artillery as they celebrated their victory? As Ukrainian forces pushed deeper into Russian-held territory, the situation in Moscow contrasted sharply with the battlefield turmoil. On September 9, 2022, while their troops faced panic and disarray, celebrations echoed through the streets of Moscow for the city's anniversary. It was a tragic disconnect, a reality check for Russian command. By September 11, awareness dawned on the world as Ukrainian forces reclaimed significant territories, exposing Russia's floundering military logistics. Imagine the sight of Russian soldiers abandoning tanks, their retreat a stampede, tumbling over one another as they fled. In a matter of days, Ukraine had inflicted staggering losses, not just in equipment but in morale. With nearly 3,000 Russian casualties and hundreds of military vehicles captured or destroyed, including tanks and artillery, the battlefield had turned into a Ukrainian triumph. As we dive deeper into the ripples created by the Kharkiv counteroffensive, we must ask ourselves, what does this say about the future of military strategy? What legacy will this operation leave behind, not just for Ukraine, but for global military tactics? As the dust settles, one thing becomes clear: understanding the true scope of this operation reveals not just a tale of bullets and bombs, but a shifting paradigm in how wars are waged in the 21st century. In the wake of a stunning military maneuver, the Ukrainian forces turned the tide of the conflict in September 2022. This counteroffensive wasn't merely a tactical skirmish, it became a masterclass in modern warfare that captivated military strategists worldwide. President Volodymyr Zelensky asserted that with additional Western weaponry, Ukraine could potentially expedite an end to the war in its favor, an assertion grounded in the remarkable performance witnessed on the battlefield. As the dust settled from the Kharkiv counteroffensive, the ripples of its success were felt far beyond Ukraine's borders. Tensions surged on the Armenia-Azerbaijan border, igniting clashes that underscored the weakened grip of a once mighty Russia. When a military superpower faces such a humbling defeat, it sends shockwaves of empowerment to its adversaries. This incident serves as a crucial lesson for anyone studying military strategy. Understand the profound implications of the Kharkiv counteroffensive, where deception emerged as the ultimate force multiplier. Consider this: Ukraine's strategic information operations were more impactful than any weapon system in shaping the battle's outcome. By artfully manipulating Russian troop movements, Ukraine set the stage for victory long before the first shots rang out. This revelation begs the question: how can an army succeed without heavy artillery? The answer lies in understanding the vulnerabilities of a centralized command structure. Russian forces were hamstrung by their rigid doctrine, unable to adapt swiftly to the chaos of a rapidly changing battlefield. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces seized real-time opportunities, showcasing agility that left their opponents reeling. But it wasn't sheer firepower that secured Ukraine's triumph, it was the systematic dismantling of Russia's logistical capabilities. The balance of power shifted not because Ukraine possessed a greater number of tanks or artillery pieces, but because they effectively neutralized Russia's ability to sustain its forces. This brings us to another vital lesson: technology amplifies competence, but it cannot replace it. The advanced Western weaponry bolstered Ukraine's efforts, yet it was the meticulous planning and execution that truly defined their success. Speed became the linchpin. The side that could observe, orient, decide, and act faster would inevitably emerge victorious, regardless of numerical advantages. To grasp the significance of Ukraine's achievement, one must reflect on its historical context. Remarkably, the Kharkiv operation outpaced even the legendary blitzkrieg tactics of the past century, solidifying its place in military history. What does this mean for future conflicts? The resonance of the Kharkiv counteroffensive is clear. The principles learned here will echo through military academies for generations to come. As we unpack the details of this extraordinary operation, the lessons become undeniable. How will these strategies shape the next chapter of warfare? The answers lie in the unfolding narrative of military evolution, where Ukraine's triumph serves as both a warning and an inspiration to the world. In the world of military strategy, few events stand out as brilliantly as the Kharkiv counteroffensive executed by Ukrainian forces in September 2022. If you think you understand modern warfare, wait until you hear about this extraordinary operation. Imagine a smaller, seemingly outmatched force turning the tide against a much larger adversary through sheer cunning and strategy. It's a classic David versus Goliath story, set in the 21st century, where adaptability and clever planning outsmart overwhelming numbers. From September 6 to 11, 2022, Ukraine launched a counteroffensive that would echo through military history. This was not merely a battle, it was a masterclass in operational art, a lesson on the value of swift decision-making and effective information systems. The New York Times called the loss of Izium, a critical logistical hub for Russia, the most devastating blow since the retreat from Kiev. But the implications were even broader. By regaining lost territory, Ukraine sent shockwaves through Russian command, smashing their momentum and forcing them to reconsider their entire operational approach. Russia had established a significant presence in the strategically vital city of Izium, with as many as 18,000 troops entrenched there, believing their superior numbers guaranteed dominance. But the Ukrainians turned the tables, exploiting Russia's misplaced confidence in a counteroffensive that they never saw coming. Ukrainian command drew attention to the southern front while stealthily amassing forces in the Kharkiv region, crafting a brilliant diversion that left Izium vulnerable. On that fateful September morning, a well-coordinated strike erupted, catching the enemy off guard. Ukrainian troops surged forward with remarkable speed, advancing deeper and faster than anyone anticipated. The first day alone saw them cover a staggering 11 miles, reclaiming key locations almost without resistance. The psychological blow to Russian forces was debilitating as they scrambled to regroup, leaving behind not just equipment but their morale. By September 9, they had pushed nearly 31 miles into territory previously held by Russian forces, recapturing fortified towns like Balaklia and reaching Kupiansk, another vital rail hub. The images and sounds of chaos filled the air. As the Ukrainian forces charged forward, reports surfaced of Russian units abandoning their posts, leaving behind supplies, tanks, and even helicopters, trophies now in Ukrainian hands. But this was more than mere tactics, it was a strategic masterpiece that reshaped the battlefield. By impacting critical logistics routes, Ukraine effectively dismantled Russian capabilities to operate effectively in the Eastern Front. It exposed profound flaws in Russia's rigid military doctrine and highlighted a new era of warfare where flexibility and intelligence reigned supreme. And just when all seemed lost for Russia, a chilling twist awaited. Could they mount a comeback, or was this their point of no return? As Kiev celebrated an improbable victory, the seeds of a new struggle lay steeped in uncertainty, showcasing how swiftly fortunes can change in war. This tactical triumph serves as a vital lesson for future conflicts. In warfare, it's not just the size of your force or the amount of ammunition you possess, it's how you make decisions, anticipate your enemy's moves, and adapt swiftly. This battle stands as a stark reminder that in modern warfare, true victory lies with those who can think beyond sheer numbers. Now, as we peer into the depths of strategy and evolution of conflict, one must ask, how will future battles be fought in light of this shifting landscape? The story of the Kharkiv counteroffensive not only highlights a remarkable achievement but signals a transformation in military thought and practice for years to come. In the realm of military strategy, few events rival the brilliance displayed during the September 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive. This operation wasn't merely a battle, it was a vivid illustration of tactical genius set against the backdrop of a deeply challenging conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Over the course of just 6 extraordinary days, Ukraine showcased how meticulous planning, innovative deception, and flawless execution can overcome even the most daunting numerical disadvantages. This was not just another chapter in warfare, it was a masterclass in how agility can outperform overwhelming force. As summer waned in 2022, the stage was set for a dramatic shift. Russian forces held the key city of Izium, a stronghold fortified with nearly 18,000 troops, establishing control that seemed insurmountable. Izium served as a critical logistics hub, pivotal for supplying Russian operations in the eastern regions of Ukraine. Surprisingly, while Russia anticipated a slow and steady advance, it failed to recognize the brewing storm, a Ukrainian counteroffensive that would turn the tide of battle. During July and August, disinformation played a crucial role. Both sides spoke of a significant Ukrainian push in the southern Kherson Oblast. Meanwhile, Ukraine cleverly deployed its forces toward Kharkiv, achieving misdirection that would soon bear fruit. As Russian commanders redirected their best units southward, the defenses in Kharkiv were undermined. It was a trap set to perfection. At the heart of this audacious plan was Oleksandr Syrsky, a strategist who had once defended Kiev. Tasked with overseeing operations in Kharkiv, he recognized the vulnerabilities in the Russian military doctrine, planning an offensive that would systematically encircle Russian forces. The preparation for this blitz was intricate. Artillery was positioned strategically, ensuring overwhelming firepower at critical moments. On September 6, 2022, the assault began with astounding speed. Ukrainian forces advanced into occupied territory, stunning the Russian army. Utilizing tanks, artillery, and elite troops, they swiftly captured villages, each victory serving as a resounding blow to Russian morale. Within hours, the Ukrainian 25th Airborne Brigade surged forward, covering 11 miles and taking control of vital roads that allowed rapid movement. While Ukrainian forces pressed forward, Russian commanders were oblivious to the chaos unfolding on the battlefield. In Moscow, celebrations marked the city's founding, completely detached from the debacle their forces faced in the northeast. Within days, Ukrainian troops had reclaimed significant territories, including fortified positions at Balaklia and Kupiansk, further destabilizing Russian logistics. The sheer scale of the Russian defeat was staggering. In merely 6 days, the losses included thousands of troops and extensive equipment, tanks, aircraft, artillery, each deserted or destroyed, and the fabric of Russian command shattered. The psychological impact rippled through the ranks, leading to an unprecedented collapse reminiscent of historical defeats. As Ukrainian forces marched forward, the echoes of their victory reverberated beyond the battlefield. The counteroffensive showcased that skills and strategy can triumph over sheer numbers and can reshape the future of warfare. The implications of this operation transcended immediate gains. They offered crucial lessons for military strategists around the world. Was this remarkable feat of military strategy merely a flash in the pan, or does it signify a new era in combat? This will be a question that haunts military planners for years to come. The stakes have changed, the rules of engagement have been rewritten. In the evolving landscape of warfare, understanding the mastery behind Ukraine's triumph is essential for those who wish to foresee the direction of future conflicts.